All right, so here we are again. This is the Crushing Limits Unleashed podcast. We have another special guest today, IFBB Pro Felix Norman. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, man, it's always good to see you, personally in the gym training hard. We were just talking off camera. For the viewers, what shows are you preparing for this year?
So this year will be my second pro season, and I'm getting ready for Legion, which is in Reno at the end of May, and then the following week will be the Toronto Pro up in Canada, which I think is June 7th. So I
Yeah.
think those are the only two I'm doing because Chicago took Open their pro show, so it'll be two shows and done this year, but that's okay.
Yeah. That's too bad. Yeah, I wonder why they took it out. I feel like it was a great show before.
Yeah, I don't know why. I haven't heard why. I know there's still Tim Gardner's still keeping it in Tampa, but yeah, I don't know for Chicago. It's too bad for us because it's by far the closest show, you know. Well,
Oh,
for
yeah.
men's open, but yeah. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully it'll continue being added to more shows and whatnot and continue to grow the way it has been lately. So
Right, right. We talked about it, I don't know, the last couple podcasts where it's like a lot has changed with bodybuilding, but it really is nice to see the guys getting compensated more. I mean,
yeah,
we're obviously not mainstream like a basketball or football, but I mean, nowadays, if you're in that top three, you can make a pretty good living.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, honestly, ironically, that who knows, that might be a reason why it's getting taken out of a few shows is just because that prize money is getting, a little bit higher. And, I understand that for a promoter, it can be hard to put up money for one winner and everything. But I do think you're right. I think overall it's a net good because these guys that are, especially the guys that are winning shows and doing the Olympia, I mean, it's in my opinion, bodybuilding is the most competitive it's ever been right now. And it's like if you're one of the best in the world and it's the most competitive your craft has ever been, you should be able to live comfortably off of the competing you do and the sacrifices you make, you know? So I'm very happy to see it and see the competition almost in the prize money, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe you guys know. So if Chicago took out open, did anywhere else add in another open? Because already I feel like open bodybuilding there's the least amount of shows to qualify for the O.
Right.
Where, like bikini, there's like 100 pro
Yeah.
qualifiers. Um, and I know it does have to do with the prize money and what it costs to bring that pro division to a show. Um, the different divisions cost more, and obviously bodybuilding is probably the most costly, right? It is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then does that take away another opportunity for an Olympia qualification, or is there like other shows that are opening up to open bodybuilding?
Yeah.
You guys know?
Yeah, I don't know. As far as I know, no. But I don't know. Not in the U.S. anyway, or in U.S. and Canada. Europe, I have no idea if they're adding more or what. But yeah, I don't think they've added any more, and so that's kind of the yeah, that's kind of the issue. Is like I think now outside of the Arnold, I think there's six or maybe seven in the U.S. all year now for
Mhm.
men's open bodybuilding. So it's like, and now you got Derek who won the Arnold. He's going to do Pittsburgh now, so he'll
Right.
probably take that qualification. Chicago qualification is gone. Guys like Nathan Deasha and Baruz, they'll run up several wins in Europe and take several spots, and then most likely not be able to make it to the Olympia due to visa issues.
Mhm.
So it's like if they cut too much and too many people compete because again it's so damn competitive, we're gonna run into a year where there's like 12 men at the Olympia, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it before where there was like 15.
Yeah,
Um, I know, I believe it was, I think 19 was a pretty, maybe one of the weakest Olympias we've ever seen,
yeah,
you know, but
yeah,
yeah, it's too bad because you obviously can't count, the overseas shows because not many guys are willing to fly where it's like, yeah, that does get expensive. If you don't
Right.
have a proper sponsor where it's like you're paying $1,500 for a flight, you're already 6, 7 grand in the hole with your prep and your food and stuff. It's like it's kind of a really a roll of the dice to see. It's like, is it even worth the flight
Yeah.
over there?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that's the whole reason why I'm not planning on going over there and doing any shows until I'm in the mix to be winning shows, because it's like I want to go do all those shows. I want to, it's an excuse to travel. You know how it is.
yeah.
That's why I'm doing different shows every year, just to check out different places and whatnot. At some point I'll go over there, but like you said, not until it's maybe worth it
Mhm.
financially. So
100%.
yeah, but
Well, you were in the first call out last year. You got fifth place, which is, I mean, that's phenomenal, especially for, your first year competing as a pro. Tell us about that. How did everything go, as far as the prep? Obviously, you did the three shows, and you improved with every show. So
yeah,
tell us kind of the mindset, what you kind of had to go through to really climb up to get that fifth place spot.
yeah. So Chicago was my pro debut last year, which again is why I'm a little sore about it, because like it's a special show for me. But that was my pro debut show, and that was the worst as far as placing. That was the worst I've ever done in any show in my life. I got outside of the top 10. I got 11th. So, couldn't come back for finals, didn't get to do my posing routine, which has never happened to me before. And so it's a huge gut punch. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys have ever been there where you're out of the top 10, but it's man, it's one of those moments where it can really make you question, like, is this as far as I'm gonna make it? Like, am I kind of in no man's land here? So Chicago went pretty poorly, not because of the peaking. The peaking was great. It was by far my best showing up until that point. It was the nerves, the presentation, the shaky posing, just the weight and the significance of the moment just kind of crashing down on me backstage.
Hmm.
And so kind of fell apart a little on stage, and that's fine. So I took a lot of lessons from that show. Did Tampa 2 weeks later. I got seventh at Tampa. So, big improvement. Technically, I was in the first call out there too,
Hmm.
but got, edged out. Um, and then Texas was the following week. And so for those 3 weeks between Chicago and Texas, it was all just pretty much all just posing, posing several times a day, every day. Um, you know, even to the extent of like a little bit of meditation, a little bit of like, kind of visualization, all that thing to kind of help get in the right mindset, get those nerves out, kind of center myself mentally and emotionally. And man, it made all the difference in the world, because you know how it is when you when you're on and you're mentally in the right spot and you're comfortable on stage and everything, you slow down the poses, you hit them better, you look more fluid, you look more natural up there because you don't look nervous, obviously. So we brought a better and better package too. Like my Texas physique was much better than Chicago because we just
Hmm.
continued to fill out. So I gained weight all the way through Chicago into Texas. So it was a better look for sure. But man, the guys, the biggest thing was just presentation and having the right mindset, walking on stage like I wanted to, with the mindset of I need to present art rather than walking on stage with the same mindset as I walk into the gym with. And that
Yeah.
was kind of the mistake I made. It was like I was just walking up there ready to fuck shit up, and it's like that's not the attitude you want to have up there when you're trying to look graceful, natural, comfortable. So that was, yeah, it was more mental and emotional, um, growing and learning than physical for sure for that season.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love how you put that, man. You described it really well. And we watched Chicago live. We watched the whole thing live. So I
Yeah,
remember. I remember leading up, I was like, I think I probably told you, I was like, dude, I don't know where your head's at, but I'm like, you could really mix it up in there.
Hmm.
I mean, your condition was,
Yeah.
second to none. And I was just like, man, you're just so dry. Like he's gonna really hurt some feelings there.
Yeah.
And then like you said, the nerves hit, which I've had that many, many times, so I get it.
Yeah.
And obviously there was some good competition there, Mo, Fuda, and
Oh man. Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great to see the process. Obviously, you came in condition, like you said, you were able to add weight and then improve on the placing from show to show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it I think you were completely normal to have nerves on your pro debut.
Yeah, and that's what everyone tells me too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. No one was like, everyone likes to talk about like the haters and this and that, and like I'm so lucky I didn't get any of that. I got people like very understanding and very encouraging, very like people reaching out wanting to give to like posing coaches and
Hmm.
judges and stuff wanting to give tips and so like everyone totally got it and like you said, Stephanie, but no one was like shocked. It's pro
Oh,
debut.
my pro debut, I was backstage and you're standing with your idols now at this point because
Yes.
you've crossed over into the ocean instead of the little pond, right?
Yep.
And I was standing backstage and I was kind of looking around and it was Wendy Fortino. She goes, "Did I piss you off?" And I was like, "What? No." She's like, "You look like you're mad or something." And I'm like, "No, I'm just like taking this all in. Like I am like scared."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you know what it's like? Have you ever seen like those shows or movies where you have like a genius kid that goes from like middle school and he goes all the way to college, and so he's like a kid with like grown men in college? That's what I
Yeah.
felt like backstage.
Yeah,
Like I'm walking around with like John Della Rosa and stuff, like people
right.
I've like looked up to and learned from, and it's a very surreal thing, and like it just kind of hits you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
totally
yeah,
understandable.
yeah,
Well, kind of a segue going into that, when you first got started, I always like to ask people, did you have a couple idols or who did you kind of want to, be or eventually turn into?
yeah. So I mean, obviously, the I have the stereotypical answer that everyone does is Arnold was kind of my first inspiration because um, one of my coaches from when I played sports in high school, um, he gave me the Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding encyclopedia as a gift. And because I would, I grew up in the weight room and I, had a YMCA membership and all that, but I didn't know what competitive bodybuilding was. And so I read that book. It's a 1,000-page book.
Yeah.
I I read that thing cover to cover multiple times. I mean, I wrote notes. I took, highlight you know, like a psycho. And so that was my first inspiration. Um, well, let me back up. That was my first inspiration where like I knew the name, I knew the face. Now I knew what competitive bodybuilding was.
Hmm.
Even earlier than that, I remember being 13, 14 and going to the grocery store with my mom and seeing the magazine rack when they still had the magazine rack and seeing Flex and Muscular Development, and I couldn't tell you who was on the covers, but I can remember in my mind walking past those stands multiple times and seeing black and white cover pictures like they would do sometimes,
Hmm.
and it was just the vascularity and the hardness and the size. I was like, there's no way this is even possible. And then I remember also thinking, but I want to look like this somehow. I don't know why I want to look like this, but I do.
Yeah.
So you know, that was kind of my first impression with bodybuilding. But then from getting the encyclopedia, it took off, and then it was just, all the greats, Ronnie, Dorian, all those guys that I read about cover to cover over and over.
Hmm.
So
I feel like you're a guy, correct me if I'm wrong, that probably has blood and guts from Dorian.
yeah. Oh, dude, I still watch that.
I
I
just
still
love it,
watch
man.
that. Dude, I
I
just I actually just filmed something. Just for fun. I just filmed something that's on YouTube, and it's a blood and guts workout, like set for set, the same thing. And I filmed it in black and white too, just for
Yeah,
fun.
I
Yeah,
got to
it's
check
funny you
that
say
out for
that.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, Dorian Yates is like he's like my top three for sure.
yeah. Who,
Yeah,
who are your other two?
top. Oh man,
I
top
know it's I
three.
know it's tough.
Yeah, top three. I'm gonna have to go Dorian, Ronnie, and probably either like Branch Warren or Tom Platz, just because I love the training intensity. I
Hmm.
love the hardcore mindset. I just, I love those weird freak people, So
Dude,
that,
Platts,
yeah,
man. I mean, the guy was a psycho in the gym, but you can't
yeah,
argue with those results, you know?
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, and that's why, it's a great example that sometimes just pure consistency and effort can beat out a lot of other factors, you
Yeah.
know.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've watched, I know you've seen the clip where I think he's at FIBO and he's got the yellow pants and he's doing like the squat off with 500,
Yes.
just ass to grass like it's
Yep.
135.
Yes. Oh, it's ridiculous. It looks like the weights are fake
Yeah.
almost.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
used to watch that shit like before every leg day and I'd be like, okay, I'm ready now. I'm going.
Yep. Yeah, man. I'll still do that sometimes. I'll
Oh,
still pull up a YouTube video while I'm eating my pre-workout meal. It's
oh
it's
yeah.
it's good it's good to not get too far away from those original inspirations.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing we were talking about, I think last week on the pod, where, I'm sure you, too, growing up as a kid like myself, like as soon as Jay Cutler's DVD came out, I would like went online, ordered it immediately. Like for 39.95, like I'd save up my money and I'd have like this stockpile just for like DVDs.
Yeah.
And you'd watch him how many times, and Mitsuru, he didn't edit anything, so like
Yeah.
you watch every time they're loading a plate.
Right.
And
Yep.
like nowadays, like we're just so like we want everything now
Yeah.
to where it's a little harder to watch now.
Yeah, I know. Well, and it's in what you're watching now is so much less training and so much more just editing effects and production and stuff. Is just like quick little 3-second cuts and clips, that suit TikTok. But it's I don't know. There's something about watching like those old videos, either Pumping Iron, Blood and Guts, the old Branch Warren videos,
Mhm.
where it's like I don't know. There's something about that ritual for me of like eating my pre-workout meal and hearing those weights bang together
Yeah,
while they're, racking them up on the squat bar or whatever. I don't know. It's just, gets you in the right mindset.
Mhm.
So,
100%, man.
yeah,
Have you seen the Phil documentary, Breaking
I have
Olympia?
not yet.
Okay, put that on your list. That's a must.
Okay. Where's it on?
It is on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yesterday was actually, I believe it was the anniversary. So it came out a year ago.
Okay.
And I mean, we bought it immediately. And it's
Yeah.
like I've watched it, I don't even know how many times, but you will
It's
love it.
good. It's
You'll
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be one of the best documentaries out there. And it was produced by The Rock.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So $7 production, The Rock, like it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
him and Universal, so it's like legit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely need to check that out. Have you guys seen the movie that just came out, or has it come out yet?
It
We're gonna go
yeah,
this weekend.
this week. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it is out. Okay.
Yeah, it came out last Friday.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I need to see that too. That looks really good, and I it looks like they kind of did it justice, and
Hmm.
that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if we see it before, we'll have to let you know how it is or vice versa.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us about turning pro. Like, was it, I mean, obviously you dominated, but like, were there any obstacles that kind of came up, or was it kind of like just a really smooth prep?
So for North Americans 2022, which is where I went pro, that prep was actually not that hard.
Hmm.
once we got into prep. So the off season before that was actually the real tricky thing that we had to figure out. So basically, after USA's 2021, which was my first national show, um, I so okay for that prep. I was not telling my coach certain things that were happening, and I'm going to throw this out there so that people listening can learn from my mistakes and do as we say and not as we do sometimes, you know. So during the USA's prep for 2021, the year before I went pro, I actually spent the last 8 weeks of that prep like you know, basically shitting blood 10, 12 times a day, all that stuff. And Chris, you and I have extensive, you know, history with this stuff. So
Hmm.
I know you know where I'm coming from with this. So it was my first national show. I had just won the overall at my regional show. I did not want to back out. I had just backed out the last 2 years because of COVID.
Hmm.
So it was like I had to follow through with this. So I didn't tell my coach that I like all my food was just running through me. You know, I had, you know, blood in my stool. I had, you know, just very bad.
Hmm.
Um, and just exhausted in the gym, unable to really do anything productive, just making it through. So as soon as I was done with USA's, I told him what was going on, and he was like, "Yeah, I figured, you know, you just kept losing weight, and we had a hard time stopping it. I figured something was going on." So he was pissed at me because I should have just told him.
Hmm.
And then we went and got a colonoscopy after that, and I ended up getting diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Is that what you have?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, because I know all about, you know, obviously I've followed your journey through the years. I just didn't know if that was the actual diagnosis.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you know, and your case is way more extreme than mine, from what I've seen from you. But that's what I was dealing with. And so that off season, we had to pull way back. We had to, you know, we had to pull way back on the food. We had to pull way back on the drug, well, pull the drugs completely. We had to, you know, just really take a few steps back for a while and get my gut health in check, get, you know, get these ulcers taken care of and everything, get on a medication and all that. And so the majority of the off season was spent navigating that. So
Mhm.
that, thank God, by the time I got to prep at the beginning of 2022, I was really, really healthy, like the healthiest that I've been, which allowed for a really, really good prep, which is why it was, you know, such a difference from one year to the next, was because I was, you know, I was actually healthy.
Mhm.
So for anyone listening, if you have like real issues, tell your coach, because that could have gotten dangerous. You're, you know, when you're no body fat, exhausted, you're running whatever things you're running, you know, that is not the time to be taking chances with health. So just a little PSA.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a
Yeah.
great tip,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Now, did they put you on any biologics, or are you still on anything, or are you pretty much manage it naturally now?
So the only thing they put me on was mesalamine.
Hmm.
Yep, and which is a pretty basic, you know, not pretty moderate medication. And I
Right.
was on that for about a year, and then we ended up doing a GI map, um, because I was running into some other issues, and so we ended up doing a GI map in 2023, and then we really went in and fixed a lot of issues. And since then, I've had no flare-ups. I take no medication. It's all managed through diet and supplements. So
Yeah.
I'm lucky. My case is mild compared to yours. Yours is a real fucking challenge, man. Excuse my language, but
Yeah.
it's very, very impressive what you've been able to do while dealing with that. Like, I don't think people realize how difficult that is and how against the odds you can be when you're dealing with those, you know, in the worst times of that condition.
I really
So
appreciate that, man. Yeah.
yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah. I'm super happy that yours is under control.
Yeah.
I had a
That's
feeling
amazing.
that it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, with all our clients too, like, you're a coach, Felix, and you hear complaints and this and that, and like, I've always been one where it's hard to really embarrass me unless like I embarrass myself,
Yeah.
and I'm not afraid to be open and honest. So like, I think I did a post about it a week or two ago, and like, I take 30 pills in the morning, just all the health sups and, for cholesterol, heart, all this stuff,
Yep.
like I know you do as well. And,
Hmm.
sometime after meal one, I'll use the restroom. And if I look down, half of those pills will be in the toilet, half open with powder.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
what does that tell you? That it's like, well, I don't know what I absorbed or didn't absorb.
Hmm.
So, and that's where it's just like, that's where, like you were saying, gut health is so important, like GI mapping, all that stuff. Because, like they say, I think Jay Cutler said it, you're only as good as what food you absorb,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Not to mention all the pills and supplements and everything else.
Mhm.
So yeah, and you know how it is if when you're dealing with a flare up or it's giving you a particularly hard time because we know it can be very random. It's impossible to put on new tissue. It's impossible to put on more weight. Like when I had my issue in 2023 that we really had to pull back and address again. I lost 30 pounds in 30 days. And yeah, and it's scary as a bodybuilder, again, you can relate to just watch all your hard work literally disappear before your eyes.
Yeah.
It's maddening. So I can totally relate with how difficult that makes it to put on weight and to just progress in this sport, when that's kind of the weak chink in our armor.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so for the viewers, I mean, look at this. I mean, Felix is enormous. He's an enormous dude. He's obviously competing at a very high level, and it just goes to him being diligent with his supplements, the health checks, all of that stuff. It's like people that forget about the health aspect of it. It's like
yeah.
you're gonna get caught somewhere down the line.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's something that's super important.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I tell people is genetically, like I'll tell my clients genetically there's so much variability, but somewhere, whether it's your lipids, your gut, your kidneys, it's usually people have weak links in their genetics just because it's in their genes. Either, you have heart disease in your genes or you have strokes in your genes, so you're, more susceptible to like blood clotting and thickening and stuff like that. Or like us, like my family has gut issues. My aunt had colon cancer and my dad had diverticulitis. So it's like that's where my weakness is. So it's also about that. Like someone else might be able to do something and have it totally not affect their health at all. And for you, just because of your genetics, your family history, it could come back to haunt you. So you really need to be diligent on all fronts. And I think people talk about blood work so much, and blood work is so emphasized right now, which is great. But the other half of that in my mind is the gut. You have your blood work and you have your gut health, and it's amazing how intertwined they are, and you really can't forget about either one of them.
Yeah, 100%, man. So let's talk about your nutrition. Obviously, you battled colitis for a while. How has it changed from like when you first started seeing the symptoms until now? What's changed?
So the changes I've made deliberately in my nutrition to kind of address it, and I'm sure you've had to do some of these things, but like my protein intake, for example, is lower than probably what you'd expect from someone my size. So like, I weigh in the 300s in the off season, and my protein is like 275, 285 a day. So
Mhm.
it's sometimes less than a gram per pound. It allows me to digest much better, much quicker. I can handle much more volume from like carbohydrates when I don't have all that protein slowing me down.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. A little bit less protein. I avoid gluten for the most part, just as a good habit. I can eat it and it doesn't bother me, but I try not to do it every day. Dairy I avoid for the most part. So like I'll do I'll do like a Greek yogurt, but other options like extra sharp cheddar that doesn't have nearly as much lactose in it and all that. So just kind of staying away from the lactose, the gluten. But man, and apart from nutrition, the stress management,
Hmm.
like that makes the biggest difference in the world. When something really, really stressful happens in my life, I can feel it affecting my gut and my colitis and all of that. But yeah, as far as nutrition, those are kind of like the biggest ones, you
Yeah,
know.
that's key. I feel like most bodybuilders that are really locked in with their nutrition, male and female, they pretty much abide by those same rules.
Yeah.
Like she'll cut, all the dairy, and gluten's never bothered her, but like when
And
it's
I don't do a lot.
right.
Right. It's just one of those things where you can if you want. Yeah.
How about like your training? What type of training philosophy do you go by? Obviously, there's so many now.
Yeah.
But how's your training evolved over the years as well, since you really got serious with it?
Yeah. So my training used to be very like very bro split, very, hit every muscle group with a ton of sets once a week, chest on Mondays, that type of thing. And I did that
Sure.
for years and it works just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. In the last few years, just because of studying I've done and things I've learned, just in general and about my own physique, and also because I'm getting a little older and I'm getting a little beat up. So my philosophy now is much more low volume, high frequency, as opposed to it used to be high volume, low frequency.
Hmm.
So everything except legs, essentially, I'm hitting two to three times a week. So like arms are up to three times a week, chest, shoulders, back twice a week, hamstrings twice a week. Pretty much once a week is only quads.
Hmm.
Um, so just a little bit more frequency, and then I cut the volume down. So I might only train like if I'm doing a push day, I might only have like 3 or 4 working sets of chest, for my all out top sets. And then I'm moving on to shoulders and triceps. So it's, little bit almost like a push pull legs but with a little less legs.
Sure.
So it works better for me now, like I said, at my age and where my body's at now. Just hit it hard, low volume, get those top sets and get out and recover and try to stimulate 2 to 3 times a week instead of once a week.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense, man. I mean,
yeah.
clearly it's working well.
Yeah. More than anything, honestly, more than anything for my arms. And I don't know what it is that made the biggest that like I don't know why it's affected my arms more than any other group, but going from that like having an arm day where you just beat the hell out of your arms for an hour and a half to just hitting, either biceps or triceps for every upper body workout, like they're getting hit every upper body day.
Mhm.
It just, I don't know, it made a huge difference, and I've put a lot of size on my arms, and I don't deal with like the elbow issues anymore that I used to, the tendonitis and whatnot. So it's just worked out well, so I'm just gonna keep running with it.
Yeah, exactly. Why change when it's working?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Now, obviously, the viewers can assume, anyone can assume, but where do you find your motivation, and what do you do on those days where your motivation just isn't that 10 out of 10?
Yeah, yeah, like we're gonna start getting there pretty soon. Couple more weeks of this diet and I'm gonna be questioning why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
um my motivation, like like I said earlier, a lot of people like to talk about haters and f the haters and all this stuff. I've never, I'm lucky, really dealt with that. My motivation is not necessarily proving people wrong. I very much want to prove my people right. And so my my family, my girlfriend, my friends, my coach, my everyone who's been in my circle in this, helping with this for the last 10 years, that's kind of my motivation. I want to prove them right, that it was worth the investment of their time, their emotions, their everything. So that's kind of like the external motivation of what outside of myself motivates me. But honestly, as boring as the answer is, most of the time I can stay motivated with just really, really wanting to win and see how far I can go with this, because I never thought I'd make it this far, and so anything beyond this is gravy. So it's just kind of fun seeing how much I can climb, because I never had any expectations from myself or for anyone else that like, oh, you're going to be Mr. Olympia someday. It's like I don't have that pressure of everyone expecting everything of me. I've already made it farther than I thought I would. I'm motivated to get as much of that gravy as I can, in the next few years while I'm here. So,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think in a lot of cases, it really does help when you don't have that pressure kind of caving in on you, because then
yeah,
you can kind of just stay in your lane, do your own thing, and then it's like all of a sudden when you've arrived wherever that point is, it's like people are like, where did he come from? And it's just
right.
like you've been doing your thing all along.
Yeah.
It's just like the spotlight wasn't centered around you.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I like it that way. I've always done much better as an underdog, or as, someone who just, people aren't very aware of. It just, I don't know. I perform better that way. So I'm fine with it. But yeah, it not having that pressure is helpful. That's, again, it was the difference between Chicago and Texas last year, was just letting myself take that pressure off of me.
Yep. So I guess for the viewers too, tell us what it's like. Obviously your girlfriend Jordan, she competes at a high level also. So
Yep.
what's it like in the household for you guys? Like, is it easier? Do you guys kind of plan your show season around, or how
Yeah.
does that look like for you?
So she's not competing right now. Last year was her last year competing for a little bit. But we obviously competed for the season together. I had never done it before. I had never been with a competitor, much less prepped at the same time or anything. It went, and you guys can probably attest to this. It went a lot better than I thought it would. Like, it's because you both run out of energy at the same time, essentially. Like our shows last year were only a few weeks apart, and so we were both kind of dead at the same time.
Yep.
So you just have the understanding that, like, as the weeks go by, we're both going to be a little less talkative. We're both going to be laugh a little bit less. We're both going to, you know and it's just the house is going to get quieter, and it just is what it is. um but it was honestly really nice having someone who not only supported or supports what I'm doing, but has firsthand experience of what it feels like. So that, when I'm having a day of like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to look at anyone. I just need to get through this day. She understands that, and she understands not to take it personally, because she's felt what that feels like when you're 3 weeks out. So
Mhm.
it's honestly been really, really, it's been a huge benefit to have her in my corner, as someone who's run the race before, so to speak. So
Yeah, I love to hear it,
yeah,
man. I'm so glad that it was, smooth for you guys. Like, we always will laugh about it after the shows.
yeah,
And there's a point where I know you hit that point where I just call it corpse mode, where you're literally just like a corpse. You're just worthless.
yeah,
And, she knows it, and I know that she knows it.
yeah,
Just it is what it is until it's done, and then we just laugh about it after.
Or inevitably you have those moments where like your partner does something and you're like, why the fuck did you do that? Like,
yes,
just kind of
yes,
snap and you're like, Oh, that really wasn't that big of a deal. I was proud
Yeah,
of
yeah.
you.
Yeah. And then, yeah, do you guys ever at the end of the season have to have like, the season's over, you get to finally both have a burger and fries and whatnot, and just sit down and apologize to each other a few times?
We had a friend who used to call it, he's like, I gotta fill the love bucket back up.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah. No, it's just part of it. You gotta accept that it's when you're in that state, yes, it's a choice. Yes, it's a first world luxury. It still sucks.
Mhm.
And it's great to have someone who understands what that suck feels like.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a good one. Do you have any like, well, I guess a two-parter. Do you have any like pre-workout rituals, just kind of odd things you do, or pre-show rituals?
Ooh. Pre-workout rituals. Not really, other than just the typical, put the playlist on in the car and kind of sip the pre-workout and get your head right.
Mhm.
I live out in the middle of nowhere, so most of the Los Campeones spots are at least half an hour away from me. So it's kind of like a nice routine of getting to set my head straight on kind of a long drive.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So I kind of like that. As far as pre-show, God, I really don't have any. Post show I do. Post show I have Hawaiian, pineapple and Canadian bacon pizza every
Okay.
time. That's the first thing I eat every time after my
I,
shows.
I love it.
So as far as pre-show rituals, though, I can't really think of anything. I can't other than I mean, I guess when I'm backstage at the shows, because you have to be there freaking 6 hours before anything happens.
Yeah.
So I do know that when I'm backstage before prejudging and like we got a long time to kill and I'm whatever, I will usually go through my phone and I will kind of go through my photo album from working back from like, that morning of prejudging all the way till like when I started prep. And I'll just kind of go back and like look at the pictures, look at like, the stuff I did during prep and, just the kind of points along the way. And it kind of helps put it in perspective of especially in the pro ranks where like I tell people once you're a pro, there's a better chance than not that you're never going to win a first place trophy again. Like
Mhm.
that's how competitive this world is. And so when I feel those thoughts of like I might never even win a show, I might never even qualify for the Olympia, why am I doing all this, why am I putting in all this effort, going through and looking back at kind of the journey that got you there really helps put it in perspective of how much more there is to take away from it than just the placing, you know so
Yeah.
it kind of helps. And again, I kind of relearned that after Chicago, where it's like you have to have you for your own sanity, you have to have more reasons than just first place. This sport, this sport is too brutal, too all-encompassing, too time-consuming for you to only have that one thing out of it. You need to find other fulfillment out of this sport.
Yeah. That has to be one of the best quotes that I've heard,
Yeah.
because that's so true, man. It's just like you said, not everyone's going to be Mr. Olympia
Yep.
or even a pro card winner. So
Yep.
it's like you have to have these takeaways. So I love how you put that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to think. There's been the Olympia has been around since '65, right? Yeah, '65. There's been 19 winners, I think. 19.
Yeah.
So you're about as likely to be Mr. Olympia as you are president. Like it's not easy. So it's a good thing to keep in mind if you do get a pro card. For anyone listening, if you do get a pro card, that's phenomenal. That's incredible. But with that pro card comes the possibility that you're never going to see first place again. And so if you're going to continue to compete as a pro while chasing that first place, I mean, don't back down on that, but find other things within bodybuilding, within the industry, within the community that you find fulfillment in, because otherwise you're going to have a miserable time as a pro unless you're an absolute genetic phenom, you know. And I don't mean to like bring, you know, I don't mean to be negative about it, but that's just the reality of it.
Oh, 100%. And so many
Yeah.
people that you see now are so like eager and like in a rush to turn pro. And I'm like, have some fun. Have
Mm-hmm.
some fun. Because exactly like what you said, once you turn pro, you may never win again.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Exactly.
there are times I've told him, I'm like, sometimes I would love to go back and like win a show.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right. Exactly.
she talks about, not collecting enough overalls. And it's like, I mean, Felix, like the overall in a lot of senses is like the pro card where it's just like you're the last man or woman standing.
Yep.
All eyes are on you, the camera's on you, and
Yep.
it's like you get to take it in. Everyone's looking at you. You're like, I did that shit. Like I
Yeah.
won.
Yeah. Well, and again, with bodybuilding being so competitive these days, some of these regional shows, just your regional show, you know, your Minnesota State or your, you know, Badger State,
Mhm.
some of these shows are really competitive, and if you manage to win the whole thing, it's legitimately impressive, and there's nothing wrong with taking a few years to win a few of those and to work your way up and to take your time so that if you do get that pro card, you're not immediately in no man's land for a few years, you know?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
even sometimes I miss the rush of the national shows,
Yeah,
the few that I did, like, and being in that first call out and like fighting for it.
yeah,
Because that was like, is it going to be this one? Is it going to be this one?
right.
And not that I did a ton, but I was always first call out in every national show I did.
Nice.
So it was, but it was, I kind of miss that feeling sometimes too of like, just like going for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, because it's such a, yeah, it's such a battle. It's such a, you know, because a pro card is still hard to get in this day and age. You know, it's not, people talk about how many pro cards are handed out, but it's like, especially for us, you know, you fit your figure or me bodybuilding, that's still hard. Like that's
Mhm.
still very competitive. So I totally get what you mean. Like that battle and that hunt,
Yeah.
it's almost more exhilarating than a pro stage because it's like it's this mountaintop that you actually can get to that you never thought you would, you know?
Yeah, that's totally accurate
Yeah.
on all accounts.
Yeah.
It was
I
fun.
wish
I don't know.
Right. I wish I could have done more local shows. I took between 2013 and 2021. I didn't compete for those 8 years. I was still in the gym, but you know, I had to build a life outside of bodybuilding before I could afford bodybuilding essentially. And so I never I you know, I won one regional overall, and that was, you know, in Tennessee. And that was the only regional show I had to do before I got my pro card. So it's like I kind of wish I would have, especially in Minnesota, like before I moved in 2016. You know, I wish I would have won one or two here with, you know, everyone I know locally. So it's, and even now, like just as a pro, just going to like a regional show, I still think they're fun, especially around here where we know everyone.
Mhm.
I love it. The energy is so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love the shows, man. Like I mean, we try to go so many that we have like a client tour literally all year.
Right. Of course.
But it's fun, like you said. And it's always nice to like appreciate because like you remember when you were battling it out in
Yeah.
your class, and it's like it's always nice when you go to a show and it's competitive. You see and females that are just sliced and diced, and you know how much work it went into it, so you just automatically like have that respect.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Is well, and it's cool. It's cool to see the excitement on like new competitors who are doing it for the first time, especially if they do well and like they, you know, they have a great experience up there. You can just feel that energy of like excitement and positivity and happiness and whatnot just for the accomplishment in itself. Whereas the pro shows, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to trade my pro card in to do amateur shows again.
No.
I'll keep doing pro shows, but there's a certain feeling of stress that goes with it because you're competing for money and you know and potentially contracts and sponsorships and Olympia qualification. Like, it's stressful. It's a job at this point. It's, there are real stakes.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's kind of fun to go to those local shows where it's just fucking fun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of like what you were saying too, like, you don't really engage with any of that negative stuff or the haters, but as the three of us have seen online, where it's just like, I don't know why bodybuilding attracts some of that negativity, where it's like, now once you turn pro, if you like flop, or even if you don't do as well as people, projected you to do, they just tear you apart online, where it's like, the people tearing you apart are probably, worth zero respect when it comes to a physique show.
Right.
So like you said, you're kind of under that scrutiny when you get
Hmm.
to the pro ranks, where it's just like, oh, this person flopped, this person's terrible. Well, it's like, well, wait a second, they're still a professional, like,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think because bodybuilding is obviously you're being judged purely on your physique. It's a very vulnerable thing.
Mhm.
I think it goes to that old saying that people want to see you do well, but not better than them.
Yeah.
And so when you put your physique into it and you put your ego that's attached to your physique into that equation, it's really easy to get in that unhealthy mindset of tearing people down who are technically ahead of you in the ranks or in the journey or in whatever.
Mhm.
But they fell short of what they wanted, and so now you get to tear them down. It's like that's not saying anything about them. That's just you exposing your own insecurities.
Yep.
You would love to be in the position this competitor is in, losing a pro show while you're still trying to win the overall at a local show. So where you're tearing him down over a place that you are still trying to work to get to.
Exactly.
What? So that's what I don't understand. It's like this is hard. This sport is hard. It's largely determined by genetics, not more than anything, but as much as a lot of things. So it's like I try to really sympathize with competitors and empathize with competitors, especially when they do fall short, because it's ruthless out there on Instagram. Like
Yeah.
it's ruthless. I'm lucky, like I said. I don't know if I'm just like sheltered or if I'm not looking at the right comment section or but I'm lucky. My name doesn't get mentioned a whole lot, but just the general hating and the general negativity, you're totally right. It's definitely rampant on social media, and it's
Mhm.
unfortunate.
Yeah. It's just kind of strange where, like, yeah, it does happen in other sports, but not quite as frequently.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but even with other sports, it's like you can armchair quarterback.
Yeah.
You can be a fat drunk yelling at how much Tom Brady sucks. Well, that's an old reference, but you know, but it's a whole different level of ridiculous when you are a competitor trying to get to that level while talking shit about someone at that level. It's
Yeah.
like, that's not a good look for you.
No.
If you just want to be a casual fan who doesn't compete and you want to, talk shit online, that's fine. That's fun. But
Yep.
if you're a competitor, you should probably carry yourself a certain way, you know?
Right. 100%.
So, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about goals. You don't have to share like your stretch goal, but let's just talk about maybe, the 2025 goals. Do you have any like short-term goals, whether it's physique related or placing related?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, physique goal is just to always come in with the best I've ever looked.
Mhm.
Bringing the best package I ever have. I think we'll do that again as long as I nail the peak and stay healthy. We've got a good amount of added tissue and whatnot. Um, as far as like concrete goals, I really want to get top 3 at one of these shows.
Mhm.
You guys know that's not all up to me. It depends who shows up. So, there could be a bunch of freaks that show up that have to get their qualification, and I don't get a top 3. But, I got 5th place at Texas last year. I would like to do better than that this year,
Mhm.
and just kind of hold myself to that standard. Beyond that, not really. Just if anything, maybe be more diligent and disciplined with the reverse out of this, because I'm probably gonna hit the season early next year with like Detroit and stuff. So I'd say if anything, it's that top 3. See if I can get a top 3, and then after the season, see how disciplined and productive I can be for what'll probably be my shortest off season yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think top three is, absolutely doable. Like you said, you never know who's going to show up, but I think, with more tissue, obviously you're going to bring in the same condition. I think it'd be a great, great year for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I'm, I'd like to think I'm realistic. I have plenty of belief in myself, but I also know that, this is a long road, and so even if I just inch up the placing, 1 or 2 placings a year, I'll punch that ticket eventually.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think that's a great mindset, man. You don't have these outlandish goals and you've always been no stranger to hard work, so you always just go back to the drawing board,
yep,
and you know what you need to improve. It's just like I feel like most people, the people that never improve, they never take an honest look, whether it's, something their coach told them or they've just never been 100% honest with themselves.
yeah.
But you seem to have a pretty good grasp to where you've been able to be honest with yourself and therefore make those improvements.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And it's hard sometimes, because if you have a glaring weakness, as with anything in life, if you have a glaring weakness, you tend to want to stay away from that. You tend to want to hide that weakness. And so, like, Steve Weinberger said, I need more lats, more upper back, thickness, width, everything. Um, and so I know that's a huge weakness. I'm self-conscious about it. Like, because I'm a bodybuilder and I have, body dysmorphia, I'm self-conscious. I'm self-conscious about my shitty back. So instead of shying away from it, I work on it literally twice as often. I train it twice as much as I used to. I go train with people who are really, really educated with physiology and anatomy and sports training and everything, to really hone in on those techniques and everything and try to maximize my training. So I try to really expose my weaknesses to myself and really turn them into strengths. And I think that, it's because it's very easy, again, to look at a weakness and go, I just want to ignore it. I have a, whatever. I have a terrible front lat spread, so I'm not gonna, whatever. My lats are my lats. I'm just gonna hit the pose and move on to the next one and hope it doesn't affect me too bad in the scoring. No, you got to take your weakest pose and put that front and center on what you need to work on. You can't shy away from it. And it's going to be the thing you hate training most. It's going to be the thing that you're, the weakest in the gym, the
Mhm.
shittiest pump, you don't have the mind muscle connection. But that's what separates you, you know, and in being able to climb this ladder, is being able to take your weaknesses head on and not shy away from them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, kind of going back to that goals and I guess legacy, how would you like to be remembered as a person and a competitor within the sport?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. That's a big question.
Yeah, it's
um,
it's a deep question.
yeah, man. As far as how I want to be remembered within the sport, just I would just like to be remembered as someone who absolutely made the most out of what they had in terms of genetics and in terms, just in terms of bodybuilding genetics. Someone who, I'm not a Phil Heath, I'm not an Andrew Jack, I'm not a Ronnie Coleman. I don't have those alien genetics, but I work every single day, year after year, and I don't stop. And I maximize my strengths, whether that's conditioning or size or whatever else. I do everything I can to maximize my strengths, to improve my weaknesses. I would just like to kind of be looked at as someone who earned earned whatever placings they ended up getting. It wasn't easy. It wasn't the genetic lottery. It wasn't weak lineups. It was, I had to show up for years and years and years and take the long road, do the marathon, and, like you said, eventually just show up and have people say, where did this come from when I've been here the whole time?
Yeah.
So I would be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, that's great, man. Final question for you. So let's say you get a potential client and they sign on with you, you're doing the onboarding. What would be your biggest piece of advice? They're coming to you and they've never competed. So they say, Felix, I want to compete in the next 12 months. And they ask you, what is your best piece of advice as someone coming into the sport who's never competed?
I would say two things. Is the first is consistency over optimization. So get a coach. Obviously, we're talking as if someone's coming to me. So you've hired me as a coach. Let me be a coach. Shut your brain off. I mean, ask questions if you have questions, if you want clarification, but trust the program, trust the process, be consistent with it day in and day out. Even if you think, in the back of your mind, like, oh, I don't know if this works, I don't know if this is the right move or whatever, follow it to the letter, be consistent for a solid amount of time, meaning, 12 months, like you said, and the consistency will pay off much more than a 1% difference in, optimization of the program. So consistency all the way. Someone, someone who, someone whose program is 70% of what it could be, but does it every day, is going to excel more than someone with 100% perfect plan that only executes twice a week, you know? So that's the first thing, consistency. The second thing, holy shit, delayed gratification. Learn delayed gratification. This is going to suck. The dieting, the placings, the posing practice, the gym, it takes forever. It all takes forever to pay off. You cannot expect anything to pay off for a long time. So love the gym, learn to love the process because the day you say it was all worth it is a long ways off from right now. So just
Yeah.
practice delayed gratification.
And you could not have said it better, man. I love that.
Yeah, hey, man, I've had to learn myself. I'm not a patient person,
Yeah,
you know.
it's tough at times.
Absolutely. Again, you know all about it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, man. We really appreciate you coming on. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, man,
Um,
absolutely. I see you guys in the gym all the time, but you've always we're either training or you got clients or something. So we never get to just stand and chat. So it's
yeah,
nice talking to you guys.
yeah, we'll definitely chat. I never want to like interrupt, but
Yeah,
we'll definitely see you. I'm sure we'll see you this weekend, probably.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, guys.
Cool, man. Well, hey, we appreciate it. Leave
Thank
your
you.
comments, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care, guys.
All right. See you,
Thank
bud.
you.